Hey, how you doing? As you can see, I had a haircut accident. Um, so now I'm among the freshly shorn for summer, and it's actually quite nice. When the air conditioning turns on, I'm like the first to know because I can like feel it on my scalp. It's just like, ah. How you doing? I took a look at, as you can see here, and I de-identified everything. So even though this is going to be posted on YouTube, it's not going to be something that's associated with anybody's name. So here's some of the thinking that I worked with. So we're looking as the trait dispositional mindfulness and suicidal ideation. And here's the keywords that we started out with: trait mindfulness and suicidal ideation. One thing that I found is suicidal ideation. Sometimes it's suicide ideation, sometimes it's suicidal ideation. If you put a star there in many of the databases, I don't think all of them do this. That'll be a wild card, so it'll catch those two, but that didn't really expand it a lot. But this is an accepted convention, and it's been around a long time, and there's lots of stuff. And there's no problem with that as a key term in quote marks. Moving on to, excuse me, trait mindfulness or dispositional mindfulness. There is a lot of stuff, but I found an interesting thing. I'll go through what I did to duplicate the search results. So in Scopus, which is like Web of Science, where it's just the top tier, highest impact journals, you can search through just the title. And I wanted to see when this terminology started to appear. So I searched in the title. There's new advanced search in Scopus, and all the index for how to do it is down the side on advanced search. But you have to clunkily type out title. They don't have a drop-down menu, which is dreadful, but maybe it's for systematic reviews. But I only look for dispositional mindfulness and trait mindfulness in the title of articles in Scopus. Scopus goes back to mid-1990s, so we should see the curve of how long these terminology have existed in the scholarship. And I'm surprised, 444 is not a lot. This might be an explanation for why there were so few found in association with suicide ideation. But you can go, and you could do a search in abstracts and maybe get a different result. You could do a search in the full text. But if we look at all of them, again, this is Scopus, that those terminologies showing up in the title, you can see there's a big boom in 2019 and 2020, but before then it was kind of slim. There's a little bit of a boom in 2015. It's funny that it's like an election year or COVID years seem to be driving this, but it only goes back to 2007. That might be why it doesn't show up a lot. And so that's called, what is that? Isn't that a null outcome where we confirmed that there isn't a lot out there? I don't know. So let me show you something else that I did. Whatever databases you're in, I'm in APA PsycInfo because I know this one's really popular. If you do a search, that same search, but you do it in the abstract, so we're looking for those key terms specifically in the abstract. So we've widened it beyond the title. An interesting thing happens that I wanted to show you that might help expand, but I don't think it's going to expand it a lot. I think it's going to expand it incrementally. So there's 1,057 things, and this has nothing to do with suicide ideation at this point. We're just looking at the trait and the disposition. I wish I had the disposition of mindfulness. I'm working on that. Is it something you can acquire? I have high hopes for myself. But out of that 1,000, you can go through the subjects, and these essentially are the key terms that the researchers have supplied to the publisher to describe their article as it's indexed. And what I did is I went through, and you could do this with any number of searches. I went through and I was like, how is this described in the key terms? And so what those authors are trying to do is they might be using terms like emotional regulation or well-being, or maybe attentiveness or attention. That one's kind of a weak keyword. There's personality traits. But what they're trying to do is, if this is a new terminology, they're trying to bridge that gap with other researchers and say, if you're looking at emotional regulation, maybe you should look at dispositional as well. So I made a list of keywords right here that I found that might work in a search when you're doing it with and suicidal ideation. That's like personality traits, positive emotions, coping behavior. You can also go on the negative side, but then you get into the weeds. So this might be more of like they're studying positive emotions. But it doesn't presuppose that people possess this, and maybe it's an intervention of mindfulness. So I can see why trait mindfulness and dispositional mindfulness have become relevant research terms. As research has expanded so big, we need to have like that, your intention or your things that have happened before. So essentially that's what I did. Another thing that I did do, and this is more of a systematic way of going through it, is I went through the ones that actually used it in their title, and I would go to the article and I would read their abstract and look at the key terms that they used. So if you found, this is Marcia Bates' berry picking. It's a library theory of how we do research. And if you go to, imagine you're a bear, and you go to a blueberry bush as a wild bear in Vermont, say, and you find one blueberry, you're not going to then go out and look at the rest of the bush. You're going to focus on that one spot where the one blueberry was and find all the other blueberries next to it. That's berry picking. So if you find one article that's good, go and read and see how they're describing it. And that might give you more keywords as well. That's bipolar disorder. So when you have a DOI, it's handy. You can just click. So one thing is that you can be confident that you're on kind of a new level of research that has only been talked about for the last 10 years or so. So that might be frustrating, and there might be ways around it by looking at other keywords and things like that. But your search, it makes sense that your search only had very few coming out. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Hopefully I can talk to you in person sometime in this coming few months. Happy summer.